Right. So this is part whatever this is. We have had some trouble with the internet, but here we are. We're going to try to finish up some conversations. I was just talking about how I compare reconciliation to the dentist. It's not something that I necessarily look forward to, but I feel much better once it's done. Okay, so the process of how you actually go to the sacrament of reconciliation. In the previous video, there was a question about that actually, and so I'm responding to that question.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we do is we examine our conscience, and maybe we'll just briefly talk about that. Before you go to the sacrament, you want to look at your heart and look at what those things that you've done well, those things you haven't done well, and you bring those to reconciliation. So you want to be prepared before you go to the sacrament.
Yeah. It's called examination because you want to examine yourself.
Right. So
right? Just take a deeper look, pop the hood and say, where am I sinning? How frequently am I doing it? And what's leading to it?
Right.
Am I creating am I watching things that I shouldn't? Or am I interacting with my family in a way that I shouldn't? Or am I interacting with the wrong people? So just kind of study where the sins are happening and then bring those, especially even the maybe missed opportunities for good.
Yeah.
And just bring those to the confessional.
Right.
It's straightforward.
So step one really begins even before you go to confession, and you are doing that either in the line or theoretically you've done some preparing beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what do you do? Well, if you go to the penance service that's next week with all the priests,
Next Tuesday, 7:00.
Next Tuesday, 7:00. Father Andrew Strobel will be here for Tuesday Night Live.
Rockstar
theoretically.
priest.
So you wouldn't necessarily begin with the sign of the cross because you've done that in the service, right? But if you do go to confession outside or whatever, you can still make the sign of the cross. But you could say, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned." That's a traditional way of starting. But don't freak out if you forget, what's my line I'm supposed to say? Because the priest will help you out. At least that's what I do. They look at me like, where do I even begin? And I say, well, how long has it been since your last confession? And that's just part one. And that just gives the priest an idea of, are we talking about, has it been months or weeks or days?
Yeah.
You don't need to know the exact time. But if you have no idea, sometimes people say to me, as priests are kind of weird because we're the only people have heard confessions other than our own, because everyone else, the only confession they have experience with is
the only sins I've ever heard are me.
Right. So, but sometimes people get, they say, it's been a long time since my last confession. And I never know what that means. And so I always ask, well, what are we talking about? Because for some, a long time means days, sometimes weeks, sometimes it means years. So it just helps the priest to kind of know the situation.
And also understanding the one requirement that reconciliation fits within is you have to go once a year, right?
Well, I mean, technically you have to go if you're in a state of mortal sin.
Correct.
That's right.
Correct.
So, yeah.
But a minimum, this is